being a new birder is, I feel like I should have said this. Every couple of months, I look back and think, wow, I've learned so much and I've changed and I've picked up all these things than I had 2 or 3 months ago. And then I'm like, oh, this is great. And then, another couple of months pass by and then I look back, I'm like, wow, I've learned all this stuff and I've seen these things. And I feel like every couple of months, I'm leveling up and just always picking up something, or someone's told me something, or hints and tips, those sorts of things. But every time I look back, I'm like, wow, look how far I've come, and look what I've learned, and look what I've found.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Birding Today podcast, where birders come together to discuss the joy of birding. I'm your host, Guillaume Durig. I want to kick off this episode with a listener shout out to Julie McLennan, who wrote in with a lovely email saying, "Thanks for producing and hosting such an interesting and informative birding podcast. I work overnight shifts as a sleep scientist, so often listen to your podcast during the deadly hour between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. or on birding road trips. Fabulous." Julie is an admin on the Birds and Birding Victoria 2022 Facebook page, a friendly community competing to photograph as many bird species in Victoria as possible. In her email, she also added, "I find it interesting to hear what brings people joy in birding and to hear your guests discuss their passion." Thank you so much, Julie, for writing in. Glad to have you with us. And if anyone else is listening who would like to receive a shout out or write me an email, you can do so. Just write to birdingtoday@gmail.com. So let's crack on with today's episode. Today's guest is 24 years old and new to the world of birding. However, he has always been keen on the outdoors and nature. Everything kickstarted after he took notice of some rosellas just 2 years ago. Now, his binoculars don't leave his side. He spends most weekends watching birds and recording their distribution throughout South Australia. Working on phone towers in South Australia has given him ample opportunity to see lots of raptors, as well as broadening his knowledge on different birds in different parts of the state. So please welcome Jack Lange on the show. How are you going, Jack?
I'm good, Cam. It's good to be here. I'm fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Yeah, I'm still enjoying the birding up here in Cairns, like we were discussing before we hit record. Just amazing. I got great billed heron as a lifer today, and Teresian kingfisher, actually, which is a recent split from the collared, depending on sources. But yeah, man, so good, so good. What about you?
It sounds fantastic. I've seen a couple of new birds lately, but I saw a glossy ibis just this week, and that was quite exciting. And not somewhere I was expected to be, so that was great.
Yeah, that's always cool when that happens, eh? Like when you get an unexpected surprise. Yeah. But about that, like about the surprise and the joy that we get from birding, this is the first kind of question and core of the show. What aspect of birding brings you joy, kind of just makes you happy and brings you joy? What about it?
That day to day, just seeing galahs makes me absolutely stoked. They just bring joy to my day every time I see them sitting on power lines or sitting on a football oval. But besides that, I love seeing new birds I've never seen before, knowing that they've gone through years and years of adaptation and changing to fit their environments, and knowing that I've never seen this particular bird before, and now all of a sudden I'm staring at it through my binoculars, and I'm stoked. It's something I've never experienced, as well as adding new birds to a list, and seeing new features of things I've maybe the first time I saw, say, an eastern curlew or something like that. It's like, wow, look at the size of this beak, or something like that. Anything that's a bit different, and it's just brings you much joy just seeing something different every time. And yeah. Another thing is, I think being able to go wherever I want to go, it doesn't matter if it's into the city or into the bush or somewhere I've never been before. Even if it's in the city, I can see rainbow lorikeets and fairy wrens and honey eaters and those sorts of things that might not be as exciting to us, but I find them awesome. And someone in a different part of the country or in a different country altogether would be absolutely stoked to see that. So I think those sorts of things are just fill me with joy.
Yeah, you touched on a couple of really good points there, like that some birds have such amazing, unique features. Like you were saying with eastern curlew, just that bill is so
Yeah.
long. Like, I remember seeing them in up in Red Rock on the northern New South Wales coast, and just marveling at that beak. Like, oh, it's incredible. And it's like the features that we see in different birds bring us different types of joy. Like, and it's birds are so varied, and each family is so varied, you know, that you get so many different kind of types of birds to enjoy. And I know that you started really quite recently. So I want to kind of know how that happened. Like you mentioned in the bio that you sent to me about the rosellas that you kind of noticed. How did that happen exactly? Describe the moment where you kind of got hooked.
So me and my partner, before birding, I was only really interested in four-wheel driving, and I was in the Victorian High Country doing some tracks there, and we were coming down a hill near a famous cottage, and it was fantastic. And a crimson rosella flew down from behind the car in front of us, and we saw the beautiful crimson and the blue, and we were like, wow, what is that beautiful parrot? And we had no idea. Like, it was one of the most easiest birds to ID, and we obviously didn't have internet. I didn't have a bird guide at that point, so we were just stunned, and we didn't know what it was. Me and my partner. Anyway, we and eventually got to a town, and we looked it up, and we found out what it was, and yeah, that's where it all started pretty much. And there was also another time where I went through a walking trail, just spending some time by myself, and I saw a Adelaide rosella, which is a crimson rosella subspecies, but
Mm.
completely different.
Yeah.
And I was once again stunned. I was like, whoa, what is this one? I took a photo on my mobile phone, and I put it on a Facebook page, and someone told me it was the same bird, a crimson rosella, Adelaide rosella. And that's where my love of rosellas started. They were my first two exciting birds. So yeah.
It's also brand new. Like I think a lot of birders who might be listening can, you know, I invite them to reminisce to when they kind of first started and first enjoyed the birds, like, and being a new birder. And this is a really kind of special episode, I think, Jack, because I think I'm trying to think, and I think you are the newest birder kind of that we've had on the show. So tell me what's it like to be a new birder? What's it like?
Well, I don't know what it's like to be an old or an experienced birder, but being a new birder, it's exciting because I don't know what's around the corner. There's so many opportunities for me, having seen like less than 300 different birds out of the amount of birds we have in Australia. I might see a new one every time I go birding. There's always potential for me to see something I've never seen before. There's always a potential for me to see a bird I've only seen once or twice, and I'll see behavior that I haven't seen before. It's fantastic, it's exciting, and there's so many opportunities to learn when you're a new birder, I think. And I think that's one of the things I love about it so much, is I'm just learning so much here and there every single time I'm out there, or even driving along the road. I might see something, not even just when I'm birding.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, being a new birder, it's fantastic, and it's hard. It is hard to put to words, but yeah, it's something I think people that are experienced, I feel like they would want to go back to being new so they could experience these things again.
Yeah.
And I am excited to become old and experienced, but I'm just soaking it up now, and everything's new, everything's different, and I'm always learning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's also worth pointing out that it's important to keep learning as you gain more experience. So like when you've got 5 years experience, 10 years, 20 years experience birding, it's always important to kind of remember I can always learn something new, you know? And like, so that in that sense, the journey never really stops for birders. Because if your passion is kind of pure, you always want to learn more about the birds. So that's what I like about birding as well. And our discussion right now kind of leads me into the pros and the cons as well of being a new birder. Do you have any particular challenges or obstacles or cons that come with being a new birder?
I do, but I just wanted to touch on something. I find another thing I've missed being a new birder is I feel like I should have said this. Every time, every couple of months, I look back and think, wow, I've learned so much and I've changed and I've picked up all these things than I had 2 or 3 months ago. And then I'm like, oh, this is great. And then, another couple of months pass by and then I look back, I'm like, wow, I've learned all this stuff and I've seen these things. And I feel like every couple of months, I'm leveling up and just always picking up something, or someone's told me something, or hints and tips, those sorts of things. But every time I look back, I'm like, wow, look how far I've come, and look what I've learned, and look what I've found. I think
Yeah.
that's a fantastic thing. But I think there is pros and cons of being a new birder. I think the pros is obviously, like I mentioned earlier, there's always lifers, which is always really exciting. Whereas someone that's seen every bird in Australia may get one every year or something. I'm getting one every couple of weeks, which is exciting. But there is cons too. I think one of the big ones with cons is you don't get to pick up the patterns, especially with things like the seasonality of birds.
Yeah.
For example, I remember in summer around, I think it was around harvest. I'm not into farming, but I was noticing a lot of things like skylarks and bushlarks and those birds that pop out of the paddocks and sit on the fences.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, these are fantastic. I can't believe I've never noticed them before. And then a couple of months went by and I've been looking for them. I haven't seen them. They've been gone. And then it's the same with a lot of different birds. It's like, oh, they're gone. And then you find out, I've got into shorebirds. I'm like, oh, they're everywhere. Like, this is fantastic. And then it's like, oh, they're gone. And then I learned I have to wait for the next season.
Yeah.
As well as there's a lot of things that it takes a lot of time. So I went on a pelagic, my first pelagic recently, and that was
Wow.
crazy exciting. But I'm surrounded by people who are, really experienced. So it's a pro to learn off of these guys and girls that have all these years of experience.
Yeah.
But then another con is I'm looking at things and they don't look necessarily like the pictures in the field guide, because they're quite far away and they're not in the same position and they're posed perfectly. So
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking at most of the time. I can pick them up quite quickly when the older and more experienced people are giving me the hints and tips, and I can pick it up and learn from that. But the con is, of course, I don't know what I'm looking at most of the time on a new pelagic, a new habitat.
Pelagic birding is like notoriously difficult, like especially when the weather's not very good. It's like you're trying to hold your binoculars like this and you're just where was it from, the pelagic?
It was a Paul McDonald pelagic. It was organized by Dave, one of the local birders in South Australia. It's fantastic. You go out and it's about a 5-hour drive for most people, from roughly where most people live in around Adelaide, or I'm north, so it was a bit over. But because you're driving that bit extra distance the night before, it's only 50 kilometers out to the shelf.
If
I was to go out from where I live, you'd be all day out there and you'd only be out there for an hour. But yeah, it was fantastic. I picked up a whole stack of live birds and I finally got to see an albatross. So that was fantastic.
Awesome. Which species was it?
I saw the Buller's albatross, which was the one I really wanted to see because they were mesmerizing.
Yeah, they're epic.
I saw Campbell's, I saw Shy albatross, and we saw a northern albatross. So that was great.
Yeah. Just to wrap up on that pelagic segment, just when I was talking to Donna a few episodes ago, she mentioned that the pelagics from South Australia go from southeast South Australia, right near the border with Victoria.
Yeah, it's not far off. It's just below Mount Gambier, which is right on the border. So it's only a stone's throw over to Victoria there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you went on a pelagic out from, say, somewhere like Ceduna. It'd be a long way out, and I've no idea what you'd pick up out there. But
yeah, it's got to do with the continental shelf, I think. Like the true seabirds kind of come in just that when the continental shelves kind of collide with the shallower water. But yeah, pelagics are great, and that sort of group mentality and social mentality of birding is also important. Like, and I imagine it's important for new birders too. Like, how do you have like kind of a social group that you go birding with, and that you kind of help each other out? Like, do you have mates that are also birders, new birders, or?
I'm more of a solo birder, but I do have a few mates. But on the pelagic, I think everyone on the pelagic is, because it's such an effort to go on it. The people that are going on it are, a lot of them are experts, and if they're not, they're really passionate. So they were so fantastic, and they were helping me however they can. I think because I was young and keen, might help them incentive to help me and that sort of thing. That was fantastic. But there is, I think, a bit of a birding scene in Adelaide. I'm probably not more or less a part of it. I don't want to be.
Why not?
I try to just stick out. I'm not into, I don't like social media and that sort of thing. I might leave a comment here and there, but
yeah.
I don't know too many people in the birding scene. I've got a few mates that are my age that's getting into it with me, and even some people are older than me that have just seen what I do, and they think it's fantastic, and they've gone into it too. So yeah, I do have a few mates who are into birding, but I don't have a mentor or an experienced person that got me into it or anything like that.
Yeah, no, and there is some value definitely in learning everything yourself and kind of going on that journey on your own, because then it's just you and the birds, isn't it? And I've mentioned this a few times as well, that when you're alone in the bush, you tend to see more. And there is the argument that if there's more of you, there's more pairs of eyes, but still, I still think that you see more when you're solo, because you're quieter, you know?
When I bird differently when I'm by myself. I find I'm a lot slower. I walk quieter, and I spend a lot more time with the bird, whereas I might see it from a distance and just wait for it to come to me. If I'm someone else, I don't want to be slow, and I don't want them to get impatient, so I might move a bit quicker, or we might move on, or we might be trying to take photos. My best birding partner is my partner, and she's fantastic, and she loves the birds, and I point them out to her, and she enjoys gets the binoculars, and I focus them, and she loves it. But she's into the plants, so she comes with me and she identifies plants while I look for the birds. And yeah, it's fantastic. And I've got a few mates that come with me here and there as well.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's excellent to hear that. Like, because it is nice to share that passion sometimes, like with others, and especially if it's your partner. Like, you sound so compatible. That's so good.
It's fantastic. But I have been birding with a couple of different people a couple of times. One from Mount Barker, and we went down to Browns Road, which is a famous, I think, one of the other podcasts, they touched on Browns Road, and yeah, we went there. But I have been birding with a lot of other people, but I mostly go by myself.
Right. Yeah.
It's something I like to talk about is that it's almost like my therapy, and it's my time to let everything out and express myself and just be me and be there in the moment. And it's a great time for me just to get with my thoughts and just be alone with the birds, and just let everything else go to the side. That everything else doesn't need to be thought about while I'm just there with the birds and with the nature. That's another reason I think going birding by yourself is just fantastic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Therapy, you touched on that word. It is a sort of therapy, isn't it? Because
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it has psychological benefits, you know, and health benefits to be out there for your mental health and also your physical health when you're, going up a mountain track or walking long distances. But so we've touched on South Australia quite a lot in the season, actually. So which is great. But have you also birded in other states? And if you have, how have you found the birding different?
So during work, I did go over the border, just a stone's throw, which was, I actually picked up a few species that I hadn't seen this year over the border, which I really wanted on my, I wanted to see it was like birds in South Australia, and then I picked them up just over the border. So that was different, but that was very similar because it was only a stone's throw. But I did go into Western Australia as well,
Yeah.
just recently, and that was different. I got to see pink cockatoos. I got to see blue-breasted wrens and a lot of different parrots in Australia. In Western Australia, the Australian ringnecks are like everywhere. I couldn't believe it. And then yeah, the red cap parrots and different birds in Western Australia. Unfortunately, I was working, so I only had one afternoon, one warm afternoon, just outside of Perth that
Yeah.
I got to do some actual birding, and I picked up a lot of live birds. But yeah, birding in different states has been good so far, but I'm excited to do more birding, all over Australia. But that I've got years to do all these sort of things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we both do. You're only 1 year younger than I am. I'm 25.
Oh, there
So
you go.
so you've got, yeah, we've got time, man.
How many years have you been birding for now?
I've been birding like because my dad is a birder, so he raised me as a birder.
Oh, wow.
So as far back as I can remember, I've kind of been into birds. We did a trip to Florida in 2004, and there's some birds that I remember seeing and some that I don't. And so, I'm sure I would have seen more if I would have, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of the ambiguity of being
Yeah.
of memory, pretty much. That's what I'm getting at.
I tell everyone that said, oh, I've been noticing birds, and I tell them, oh, it's a slippery slope. I wasn't a bird watcher until I was, one day you're like, oh, okay, now it's obsessive now. But yeah, no, my dad is not a birder, but
mm,
he's always pointed out the birds to me, and he's always talked about them. He likes the bigger birds. He's not like a lot of people. He's not interested in the small little brown birds that aren't quite as exciting, but loves the big eagles and those sorts of things.
yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, and Australia is a great kind of example of that, of the different varieties of birds. Like considering each state, like up here in Cairns, you just get so many different birds that you don't get anywhere else in Australia. The far north Queensland, as I mentioned with Jan in the last episode, just so much variety and
Yeah.
just incredible kind of behaviors too that you can see here. Like, and behaviors is kind of a universal thing in birding, with every birds, but there's some habitats that kind of, when you see behavior in that habitat, like in the wet tropics, for example, where you see these crazy birds, like you just get so happy. Like that great-billed heron that I mentioned, it was just, there was a saltwater croc next to it, like a few meters away, and it was just, it
Wow.
was, and I was concentrating on the great-billed heron because I'm a birder, but it was that extra touch of the saltwater crocodile and
Yeah.
the great-billed heron just hunting like in the shallows, just going slowly, looking at the water. It was just beautiful. And that's what I mean by behavior and habitat intertwining and juxtaposing. You see what I mean?
Whereas the grey-billed heron was probably aware of the crocodile, but
Maybe. I mean, they weren't that close, but that's a good point. Like, I wonder, because would a croc eat a great-billed heron?
I don't know.
If anyone knows who's listening, please
I'll
write
hope
in.
not.
Yeah. But so pretty much all of this kind of leads me to saying that the whole world is good for birding, but you're from South Australia. What about South Australia makes it special for birding? I asked this question to Donna as well, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are as a new birder about South Australian birding.
I think South Australia, I'm not sure because I haven't had much experience in other states. I just think if you start from Adelaide, you don't have to drive too far to go to a heap of different habitats.
Mm.
So you can get within an hour or so, maybe two, you can get great waders, great like shorebirds.
Mm.
You can see wetland birds. You can see arid birds. You can see forest birds. You can see urban birds. And these are all these things within just an hour, but over the whole of the state, from down in the corner, like the eastern corner of South Australia, near Port Macdonald, you could, all these fantastic birds, different types of kingfishers and like the pelagics, but then you can go to the west and see a lot of really arid birds, or go north and see those, the leatherwing kites and the grey falcons and all these
Yeah.
different things, as well as having the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary full of different wading birds. So there's all
Mm,
these different places that as far as I'm concerned, they're quite easily accessible,
mm.
as well as it's quite quiet. So most times I go to a conservation park, you're usually by yourself. You maybe see one or two people. Quite often you won't see anyone. I think that makes South Australia special, as well as I think we've got over 400 different birds that you can potentially see in South Australia, which is, really exciting. I think that's quite a diverse range of different things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes South Australia special, especially when it's home as well. So to me, it's really special because it's my home state. So I would rather see anything. If I can see it in South Australia, of course I'd rather see it here.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, the home kind of aspect of it, and keeping local lists and kind of growing your state list and your LGA list.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that a bit. Are you into eBird? How do you use eBird?
I do use eBird. eBird sort of helped kickstart the birding a lot, I think, because I was able to use it as a tool. I
Mm,
was able to hit the explore button, and that would show me what's around, what within like a 30-mile radius. I
yeah.
switched miles to get a bit of a bigger circle, but
Oh, that's a
it was
good point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't done that.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll do that.
we get an extra, half a kilometer per. But yeah, so I can see what's around me. I can see if someone else has seen something. It's like, oh, well, I didn't know that was going to be here. I can go look for that, or
Mm,
as well as say, oh, you're going to be here next week. I can, I can punch in that place and see sort of what birds I can expect to see, and then if I've never seen that bird, then I can go and research it, and I can
mm.
research it through eBird and find out, what habitat to look for, found out what its call is, found out what it looks like, found out what the juveniles and females look like, not just the bright males. Um, I also use eBird as I keep my list on eBird. So up until all I had in as a list was in the back of my field guide. I had them all
Oh,
ticked off. There was
yeah.
I still tick them off in the book, but yeah, my only list was in the back of the field guide. So if someone ever asked me how many birds I'd seen, it was somewhere between 50 and 200. But now I can sort of have a look at what I've seen when I've seen it. If someone wants to know where's the best place to see a rainbow bee eater, like someone asked me earlier, I was like, oh well, these are the places I think, but here's the places I've seen them,
Yeah,
and these are the dates I've seen them, so you can expect to see them within these dates.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I think it's a fantastic tool, and the more that people use it, and if they use it correctly, doing complete checklists and accurate checklists, that's the more citizen science that people can use to help protect these birds or help research the distribution of these birds. So I'm big one on making my checklist accurate so that they can be used. If I'm starting to not be accurate or not having correct counts, then that might have a detrimental effect. Whereas if we all just use eBird and then upload these accurate track lists, then they can be used for science, which is a big thing for me.
And like eBird is great because you can do it anywhere, right? And this is something I wanted to touch on as well, Jack, about your work, because I know that your work brings you to lots of different places. And so, what does it exactly involve working on the phone towers, and how does that mean that you can see more birds? If you see what I mean.
So traditionally, if I was working in a factory, I would only be birding on the weekends and maybe my short drive to work.
Yeah.
Being on phone towers, we have phone towers all over the state, so we can, wherever I may be, I don't know where I'm going on Monday, so
Mm.
I don't know, and I drive along, and as long as I'm quick with my IDs, I can see things on the side of the road. And I'm in working hours, I can't really pull over. I will if it's ultra special, which I've done. So boss isn't watching. But it means I can go to different parts of the state and I can see things. They fly into the towers, whether that's the trees that are surrounding the base,
Yeah.
or quite often, more often than not, there's a lot of birds nesting either in or on the towers. So last week we spent a week in Clarendon, which is a beautiful town in the Adelaide Hills, and I've never seen so many pardalotes in my life. It was just like there was 20 around me at all times. Then they'll get used to your presence. So they would sit there, just a couple of meters away. I believe they're inside the poles. I think they've got nests inside the poles because you see them flying in and out.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So the little birds use the bottom of the tower. They use they can nest in the hut or in the trees near the tower. And then the bigger raptors, peregrines and kestrels and even magpies and ravens, and I'm yet to see a wedgie nest, but who knows what's next. They quite often, and then even from the tops of the towers, you always get to see something. So when you're just a few meters up, I've seen so many different species just from a few meters up off the tower when you're level with the canopy.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So you actually go up onto the towers quite high up, do you? Yeah.
That's right. And then when you're up, up further past the canopy of the trees, up near the top of the tower, you get a great view, obviously, a 360 view. And I get to see things like falcons and eagles. Wedge tail eagles are very common to see just soaring around because I'm up there and I've got the whole sky. I see them all the time. So it's fantastic, as well as you can hear more. You get to hear the bird calls, I think, a bit better. So I get to hear a lot of things. Then I've heard, I can have a look around, see if I can see it, whether it's a kookaburra or a black-faced cuckoo shrike. I can look around and find it, and if not, I'm probably going to see an eagle every day, or maybe a hawk or a falcon.
Yeah. It'd be good for raptors, I can imagine. Yeah, that's fabulous.
As well as some days you'll see nests. So I've climbed down and I've seen, some kestrels. I saw 5 kestrels in one nest that were almost ready to leave.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, and it's a bit hard. We're allowed to leave the nests. We don't always have to ditch the nests off the tower, because if they've got chicks in them, we can leave them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
If they're unoccupied and not used, and there's no evidence of being used, we've been asked by I think it's the EPA or somewhere like that we need to remove the nest so that the birds can nest in their actual proper habitat rather than somewhere on a phone tower that's not quite right for them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. I'd be interested to know more about kind of the policies because
I don't like to remove nests unless asked.
Yeah, I of course, like being a birder.
A lot of them are disused nests. I think crow's nests quite often as well. So you do have to remove them if they're causing rust issues, or if they're causing issues and maybe they haven't been used for a year or two.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah. And so when you're out birding or out working and you see birds and you're using eBird, or you're out with your partner or in the forest or out on a pelagic, are you into bird photography at all?
I wouldn't call myself a photographer. I do have a camera. The camera has a Nikon P1000, so it's a point and shoot camera technically, but it's got 3000 millimeters of zoom, so I can use it for identification, as well as I can get photos under 2000 millimeters. I can get half okay photos that I'm happy with. And I don't always take photos, but if there's a bird that's sitting there on a nice perch in nice light, I'm always going to take that opportunity to grab that beautiful photo if I can. It's a bit slow. It's not the best. It's obviously not the best camera. I picked it up for $500. But I think looking back at my photos, I'm really proud of a lot of them, and I've captured some great moments. And I can go back myself and look at these things and remind myself, oh, that was great. And yeah, so I do take some photos. I do have a page I put them up on where my family and friends look at them.
Yeah.
but I wouldn't call myself a bird photographer because it's
Yeah.
more for me. It's always binoculars first. I always, have a good look, watch the bird, and then oh, this bird's sitting in the light and it's still and it's calm and it looks really good. So yeah, I'll take a few pics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same. I think just to loop back to my great-billed heron sighting today, I'm still in a kind of high lifer high. I was actually driving. I was in the car driving, and we were crossing. I was alone. I was crossing. I was on the highway crossing a bridge over a mangrove river. See what I mean? They have
Yep.
mangroves along each side, and it had an exposed mud flat, right? Just like over it was on I was driving it was on my right hand side, and I just casually looked because I always do when it's probably a bit unsafe, but whenever I'm crossing like a bridge in my car, I just have a quick look, and I saw, I knew instantly it was a great-billed heron just because of the size and the shape and the dark color, and I was just like, great-billed heron. And so I pulled off, I pulled over, and I kind of looped back around, and I forgot how I got here, but yeah, about photography. I quite like video, and so I was just so excited to get a video of it that I just quickly got the video first up and running, and then I left the camera on my tripod, kind of rolling, and then while that's filming, I kind of have a look at the bird. I think it's my new favorite bird. What a bird! What a bird!
That's because it was the last bird you looked at, and I'm sure the next bird you look at will be your favorite bird too. But there's something to be said about birding while driving. I don't think it's that dangerous. I do it all the time. I'm always spotting birds, and I'm quite quick, and it helps me. My identification skills get quick. Something shoots across, and or maybe it's on a power line. It's like, stop the car, get out.
I also saw a grey goshawk in Cairns and was driving in the city. That's maybe when it can get a bit more unsafe when there's more cars around. But it was just flying, and I saw it perch in a. This was today as well, in one of the palm trees. And again, just stopped straight away. My wife was with me this time. We were going to Cairns Central for shopping, and this grey goshawk just flew just above the car, and then it perched onto the palm tree, and it's like, okay, I've got to stop. And I didn't have my camera or my binoculars, but even just with a naked eye, sometimes is enough. So beautiful.
I got a trick that I could only use once. I only worked once. We were driving under a bridge, and it's a backcountry road, but it goes under a bridge though. And there was I think it was a brown falcon at the time. It was a while ago now. It was on the light pole, or it was on a wire or something. And I was like, I wasn't driving. My partner was driving. I said, stop the car! I got to vomit. Stop
just
real quick.
Just so you could stop the car and see the falcon.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, you got to do what you got to do.
It only worked once.
Oh man, that's so great. Like all these stories that keep happening as birders, and I keep saying you're a new birder, but you're not really. You're starting to get the knowledge that we all have as birders, and so that leads me to ask you, what advice would you have for someone that's like brand new to birding, who wants to get in to the hobby and the passion, and they know they love birds? Do you have any tips or advice, or just any thoughts about that, about giving advice to new birders?
I think if you're someone that wants to try it out and see if you like it, I would say maybe try look up, if you have Facebooks, look up one of the birding pages and just ask to see if there's anyone that would like to go. They might take you out, as long as it's a safe, comfortable situation. They might take you out and see if you like it. But if you like it, you like birds, I think it's really important to make sure before you get too crazy into it, make sure you've got a field guide, like a book, or even an app. I use Merlin because you can a Merlin app, so I can scroll up and punch in the bird's name, or whatever you want, and then look at through the different pictures of that bird and then read up. I think it's important to have some sort of field guide. I think having a good pair of binoculars is like ultra important.
Yeah.
So it's worth, especially if you think you might be doing it for a long time, it's worth investing the money now into a few $100s or more pair so that you can see what you're looking at properly. You can get the colors, and it's not blurry. You learn how to use them, make sure you're getting the right ones. You can look on YouTube and just find some information if you're a new birder, and that way you've got the right stuff. You've got all the tools. Once you've got your field guide and your binoculars, you've got the right tools, and then it's just about going out and learning. You're never gonna learn everything in the first time. So you just have to learn the common birds first. I think that's a big tip for new birders. Just learn the common birds, and then if you see something that's not the common bird, then you can sit down, maybe take a photo or take some notes as to what you're seeing, what you're hearing, the size of the bird, what it's doing, its behavior, whether it's not, I think, yeah, that's another point to touch on. It's not just about the colors of the bird. If it's this color, maybe just take note that it's in a tree or it's in a bush or it's in the mud. I think that's a really good thing that I picked up after a while. At first, I was just looking at the colors and did it look like the bird in the picture in the book or not? But then I learned, it might be hard to judge the size. So say, oh, it's about the size of a pigeon. So then you can look up the size of a pigeon, and then you can look in your book, for another bird that's about that size. And then you can, I think these little things are important, not just, listen to the call, and then you can play it back. And then you can look at the size, you can look at its behavior, and then also another really important one is its location. I think that's a really important thing for new birders is, if you see a bird and you're like, okay, it's flying, it's small, it's got a bit of orange, bit of blue, and a bit of white. Is it a barn swallow or is it a welcome swallow? Then if you look in the book, you can look on the map. If you're in South Australia, it's probably going to be a welcome swallow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, distribution patterns. Yeah,
it's a really important one, and you see it a lot. So I think that's another really good thing. And then I think the last thing would be just to be open-minded and willing to learn, and willing to just go out as much as you can when you want to. Don't force yourself to do it. If you don't feel like going birding that day, don't go, and then just go when you want to, and you'll love it. Everything will come naturally. And after 6 months, you'll look back to where you were 6 months ago, and you'll be like, wow, I've learned so much. And then just remember, another 6 months time, you'll probably learn just as much. So I think that's another good thing for new birders to learn.
Yeah, there's always more. Like we were saying before, there's you're always learning as a birder. Even the most experienced birders can learn still, and they do learn if they're, because they know that there is more to learn. And not only about Australian birds, of course, but about all the birds in the world. Like there's so many different families and orders and things, things to love about birding in the whole world over. And that leads me to one of the closing questions, just so we can start wrapping up. What would be your dream destination for birding anywhere in the world? Or make it in Australia, and so two, in Australia and anywhere in the world, overseas.
Well, my dream destination, I do think it's going to be Australia anyway, because I'm in love with this country. That would be, I think, Kakadu National Park. I would love to see the different, I'm sure there's a huge variety of birds, and a lot of them that I've never even seen or even noticed in my field guide that I could see.
Wow, yeah.
I'd love to go to Kakadu as well as a lot of other places that are always on the list, like Iron Range and Cairns, Queensland. I looked on eBird the other day when my parents went to Cairns, and it said there was 130 targets within the last 30 days, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I think in the world, I don't really know. I would love to see the seabirds out near Antarctica.
Yeah.
I think it might be a bit of a different answer, but I just think anything that's living out there, that's fascinating. as well as some of the tropical birds in different countries. But yeah, I couldn't give you a country name that I've ever thought that I want to go there to go birding, because I just want to go around Australia.
Yeah. First things first, eh?
That's right. Keep it local.
Yeah, that's right. No, but there's always so much to explore, isn't there? And so what about, in the same vein, a favorite bird that you have? What would be your favorite bird species?
Well, galahs are my go-to answer when people ask my favorite bird. A, because everyone knows a galah, and B, they bring me so much joy and they always make me happy. They always make me smile no matter what. But I usually like the bird I'm looking at. So I'll look at a bird and be like, wow, that's now my new favorite bird. Every time. Oh, a yellow-plumed honeyeater. It's phenomenal. It's gorgeous.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much the bird I'm looking at. But yeah, galah's a good go-to for me. I just think they're gorgeous.
Yes, that's so true. I lived in Melbourne for a long time, and you know, in Victoria generally, and they're so beautiful, especially like when the sun is low, either in the morning or the evening. Sometimes when they just flash that pink belly against the orange sun, that color is sublime, isn't it?
Especially when I can see a couple of hundred, or even I think I counted 700 the other day in the main street.
700. Wow.
Yeah, they come in and line the power lines, and I drove from one end to the other and pulled over and counted each section, and there was 700. And I love gigantic flocks of galahs. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. We don't have them up here in Cairns. That's one thing you don't get in Cairns. You don't
Really?
get galahs. Yeah, they're just not. So I've kind of missed that, actually, but I can't complain.
Such a common bird. One of the most iconic common Australian birds, but they're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're fabulous. And just also to touch on what you said before about the last bird being your favorite bird, like not necessarily maybe the very last bird you see, but maybe the last lifer, or the last rare bird, or the last bird that you connected with.
Yeah, I think that the bird you connect with, sometimes, you know, I might go out and just leave your phone and your camera, and then just sometimes I just sit there and just watch it. The bird gets used to you being there, so it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit there and connect with the bird, like you said, and I feel like you almost develop like a relationship with this bird. That bird might not think the same, but I think that's really special for me. And those sorts of things are fantastic.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a great note to end on, Jack. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
No worries, man. It's been good. Always love meeting new birders. And if you've got any recommendations for more guests to come, and if any listeners also have recommendations, do email in as well, and let me know who'd be a good guest to come on. But you've been an absolute joy, Jack. Thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me, mate.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to or watching this episode of the Birding Today podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to stay up to date with the show, you can follow me on all my social media platforms. And if you want to take it a step further and support the show and also get some cool benefits, you can support me on Patreon as well. So again, thank you for listening or watching, and I'll see you in the next one.